All right, guys, it is Sunday night, and that means it is Sunday night service, and I am back. Gosh, it's been several months since I've had a Sunday night service. So let me know as soon as you get on here. Hit your heart buttons, hit your like buttons, tell me where you're from, all the things. This is a heavy, heavy topic tonight. So I just want to know if you guys are on and if you can hear me and all of those good things. All right. All right. I'm on. Just let me know if you can hear me. I want to know that. All right. All that being said, share it with your people. We're talking a heavy topic tonight, caring for a aging toxic parent that didn't care for you. It's as simple and as complicated as that right there. And there's nothing fun about it. I prayed about it before we got on here, and I've been thinking about it all weekend long. I was in Paducah or in Marshall County this weekend and standing in the house and just thinking about it, that this is not a mother bashing night. So I want you all to know that. Do not send me nasty messages. This is my story, and I am allowed to feel the way I feel. And many people have got the exact same story. I cannot tell you how many hundreds of you have private messaged me, seen me, come to me, all of that, and told me, Danny, your story is very similar to my story. Growing up in a home with a mother who basically I was unmothered. She never really should have had children. And so she only had one, and it was me. So we're going to talk about it. She's not alive. She can't defend herself, and she wouldn't do it anyway because I know how she would behave. So anyway, I'm excited to be back. All right. So we're going to dive in. And I'm going to read some of this because I've typed it out. I don't want to, go rogue over here. This is going to be pretty short and sweet. And then we're going to continue with part 2 in 2 weeks. So, the last 4.5 years since 2019, I have shared my story with you all. I've shared a lot of my story. I haven't shared everything, but I've shared a lot of my story. I've shared the funny, the witty, the sarcastic moments of my mother's journey declining health wise and memory wise from Alzheimer's disease. And then in the end, vascular disease, which I shouldn't have been surprised about. She smoked for 60 something years. Also shared the hurtful and the cruel moments that, oh my gosh, would take my breath away live. You remember? I mean, many of you may have seen, maybe some of you are new, but I'd have my phone like this and I would be videoing my mom, right, at the assisted living. And I'd say something, I'd blah, 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 and then she'd say something just horribly mean or cruel. And it's all on video, and I would be like, what the heck? Even and so, but it was the story of my life, just the story of my life. I spent the last 4.5 years, just like many of you, caring for a mother that never cared for me. Okay. Now she raised me. I had a house, I had clothes, right? I had food, but she never nurtured me. Now, there's a big difference. There's a real big difference in nurturing, being nurtured, and being unmothered. And she died suddenly, really, really pretty suddenly on August the 18th. And I realized, this is what I was thinking. This is what I've been thinking as I've been in grief therapy is without mom, who am I supposed to be now? Because you see, I spent the last 4.5 years literally rushing from Tennessee. I would finish clinic, get in the car, grab Edwin, and drive fast to Kentucky. And I would care for her, run her around, advocate for her, right? Fight for her, try to get her the best care, the best home health care, occupational therapy, physical therapy. I mean, psych care at the assisted living, all the things, ran around like a crazy woman, just nonstop for 4.5 years, and then trying to work my life into that as well. And then she's gone. So what am I going to do? And it's an interesting place to be. And, I did all of this and it was as if uh, it was all expected. She never said thank you. She didn't do anything. But until the very end, and I mean the very end, she died on August 18th at 9:48 at night. 2 days before, the day before, the Thursday before, she said something so cruel. Now, she was on hospice, and I think she'd had a stroke, and she said, how awful I was, and I was killing her. Well, I had nothing to do with the hospice medications. I intentionally stayed out of that, but she looked me in the eye and had hardly said anything, and I had not left since I got there. And the sitter was there, and she was so cruel and so mean to me. And the sitter looked at me when she fell asleep, and she said, "Nanny, I cannot believe she talked to you like that." She said, "My parents have never said anything that mean to me." And I was just like, well, welcome to my world. This has been my world. But, I didn't know she was going to be dead the next day. But, I mean, right up until the very end. And then she asked me, I think the day she died, maybe the morning of May, could have been during this when she was talking so cruel. She said, and she'd had a stroke, and she said, "Do you love me, Danielle?" I think she said Danielle. And I said, "Yes, of course." And that was really interesting because I didn't feel much. I just didn't feel much. I still haven't cried. I have not cried. Now, again, there are many different ways to grieve. And I'm learning this as I'm in grief counseling. So many of us, though, we have mothers who can't love, or we had mothers who can't love. We have narcissist moms. We have cold moms. We have absent moms. We have controlling moms, abusive moms, distant moms, critical moms, just moms who never were uplifting and loving. And I've learned that as I've shared the story, many of you have had the same exact moms in your life, the non involved, toxic, non loving. They may love you, but they're not loving. There's a difference, and I loved my mom. I did. But, there was not a lot of feelings, and we're going to say why. So lots of you know my story. I've shared my story. It's on Instagram. It's on Facebook. I grew up in a shithole of chaos, complete and total chaos. My grandfather died by suicide in the driveway before I was born. My mom attempted suicide multiple times. My first stepfather was a child molester whom, when I was about 13 years old, my mom looked me in the eye because I was in grade school, maybe third grade when he molested me. She looked me square in the eye when I was 13 and she said, "Danielle, you caused me to lose the only man I've ever loved." All right. And then the third stepfather nearly killed me my senior year. I'm not laughing about it. He choked me almost unconscious my senior year in high school in the bathroom that I have since remodeled and taken that bathtub out because I accidentally pulled his eye out. He had one eye, pulled his eye out and went in the bathtub. It was a big ordeal. I found all the choking pictures at the house that my mom had taken. So I grew up in a lot of childhood trauma. My ACE questionnaire, my score is a 6. It's a pretty high score. My mom's score is a 1. So her childhood was not abusive. The only one she had, her parents got divorced before she was 18. And so it wasn't her childhood that caused this. She had been institutionalized multiple times attempting suicide. So, those are things that contributed to the chaos in my world. But so fast forward to 2018, my mom was declining. I got a phone call from a cousin of ours who said, "Danny, have you noticed that your mom is acting odd, asking the same questions over and over, talking about her mom and all this?" My grandmother had died, years before that. And I said, "Yeah, I have." So anyway, I came home December 2018. I was cleaning out her pantry, which was a huge pantry full of food, literally stacked. It's on my Instagram. If you scroll back to 2018, there's a before and after. She was screaming at me. I was talking to her about planning things. I wasn't talking about assisted living, but I was talking about, let's go to the neurologist. Let's get, this, that, and another done. And she screamed at me. She called her best friend, and she was on the phone with her. And she said, I wish I'd never had Danielle. I wish I'd never had her. She's nothing but a bitch. What? I'm over there trying to help her. And she screams this into the phone to Sandra. And, it was like, golly, this is going to be a journey. I had no idea what was going to happen. Fast forward June of 2019, she fell on the floor, collapsed. They got her to the hospital. Nobody called me because she had taken me out of the will. And she was in the ICU with a GI bleed, and she never went home. June 2019 is when everything fell apart. And she refused. She refused for me to help her. And so I think we could have a whole Sunday night service on this, on, gosh, what are the things that you look for in your parents? And what do you do? What do you actually do when they are declining and they won't let you do anything, right? But I know things now to look for, as I had to clean the house out. It took me 2 years, to get the house cleaned out and all of that. And so things like looking, into the pantry, things had expired 10, 15 years before. I'm not ever in her pantry. She wouldn't let me anywhere except the front room, the kitchen, and the bathroom, and the living room. I didn't get in her closet and her bedroom and all that. It was horrible. And she had been declining for a long time. And, I wasn't allowed to see that. So anyway, that was in 2019. That December, 2017. In 2017, Ella and Jackson and I left the house that Christmas, and Ella goes, well, Mom, and literally I would spend as little time as possible at my mom's on the holidays, as little time as possible, in an attempt to keep my mouth shut. Oftentimes it wouldn't happen. But Ella looked at me when we got in the car, and she said, well, Mom, that was a success. And I said, what are you talking about? She said, nobody cried. Nobody got up and left. Nobody cussed, nobody screamed. And I said, well, you're right. So the last Christmas that we had before all hell broke loose was definitely a success. But here we go. Here's what I want you all to know, is that I grew up with a mom that was like this list of things I'm going to rattle off on here. Many of you also experienced this, because I read my messages today on Facebook and Instagram when I shared this. Many of you shared had the exact same situation. I grew up with a mother who is beyond critical. Beyond critical. She told me, this was her terminology for me. She would say, you do everything half-ass, Danielle. You will never amount to anything. And her third husband, Jim, she had two husbands named, three husbands, two were named Jim. The last husband, named Jim, said the exact same thing. I will never forget. He always said, you'll never amount to anything. And she did not show up to my college graduation, because when he almost killed me my senior year in high school, I told her I never wanted him around me again. So this is 4 years later, right? She refused to show up to my college graduation, didn't show up. In fact, my boyfriend, Scott Elkins, his mom and dad showed up to my college graduation because my mom didn't, because they had a feeling she wasn't going to show up, and she didn't. And I looked for her the whole time. Lots of you know that feeling of looking for a parent to show up to an event. She never came to my band event. She didn't come to anything, actually. She couldn't be bothered to. I don't know. Maybe she had a husband who wouldn't let her go. I don't know, but she wouldn't share it with me. So she was on me. I did everything half-assed. I have a wall full of degrees. I've got 3 master's degrees, right? A bachelor's of science. I've got a lot of degrees and a lot of certifications behind me in my office. And I looked at them one day and I realized, good Lord, every single one of those, all you want is your mom to say, well done. Well done, Danny. Nice job. I'm proud of you. And I just kept going and kept going, thinking she'll do this. She never did. She never did. I had a mom who was not a cheerleader. She was not a nurturer. She did tear me down every stinking chance she got. Every chance she got. I was listening to a book today on toxic mothers, right? Mothers who can't love. and talking about upstaging their daughters. Anytime anything great would happen to me, she would upstage it with something. And I had a good friend of mine, Sue Detweiler, threw me a birthday party, and they were going around the room saying how they knew me or what I meant to them, not how they knew me, what I meant to them. And everyone said whatever. And it was so great. And it was so emotional because you just don't realize what you mean to people. And then my mom just completely turned it around and made it about her. I brought her to this birthday party because I thought, from Nashville, my friend Kim brought her. And anyway, she made it all about her. And she said, well, Danielle's just like me. She bought a one-way plane ticket to New York City when she graduated college and made it, just like I did. And, she continued to tell her story. And when it was over, my friend Billy came up to me. She said, good Lord, Danny. And Sue said the same thing. I said, yes, I know. It's the story of my life. I started my period. I have a mother, and I bet many of you can relate to this. When I started my period, I ran in. I said, hey, Mom, I said, I got to tell you something. And she goes, what did you break? What did you break now, Danielle? And I said, I didn't break anything. I said, I started my period. I think I started my period. And she literally hands me a box. Say, this is about, it was a Kimberly Clark box. And she said, here, go figure it out. I remember when Ella started her period, I spent, well, I won't tell you. It would horrify her. But anyway, go figure it out. What the heck? Go figure it out. Okay. Well, I figured it out. I figured it out just fine. I got a message from a good friend of mine in high school recently. My mom, she kicked me out of the house when I was 18 because she found birth control. So I was a virgin. I was a straight up virgin. My dad, though, owned a restaurant in Paducah, and he had a lot of high school students in there working. And he thought I was having sex. And I was like, Dad, I'm not having sex. He said, well, you're going to college soon, and you need to go get a pap smear. You need to get on birth control. Okay, whatever. So she found my birth control. I was at work. I came home from work from the Village Barn in my little red MGB convertible. Everything I own is on the patio. Everything I own. I said, what are you doing? She goes, you're moving out. She said, if you're old enough to F around, you are old enough to live on your own. So I called Lori Phillips, and I was like, what? No, I couldn't have called her. We didn't have cell phones. And she wouldn't let me back in the house. And I drove to Lori's, and I told Lori on the message, I said, do you remember whenever she kicked me out? And I went and lived with Lori until eventually I got to come back. But Lori, she said, I remember being in your house and us hiding from your mom. I mean, good Lord. A girl 35, 40 years ago still remembers that, oh my Lord. Okay. So anyway, she told me, she slapped me down. She was a hitter. All right. She was a hitter. So just like many of you, I would try, and I would pick that phone up, and I would call my mom over and over and over and think it was going to be different, right? And it would always end up in a fight. Always. It didn't matter. It would always end up in a fight. And I would hang that phone up crying, even, as recently as 5 or 6 years ago. And I'd call Margot, my friend Margot, and I'd cry, and she'd say, Danny, I'm so sorry. Margot had this great childhood, and I'm so sorry. I just can't imagine my mom ever doing this. Over and over and over until I finally set my boundaries. And I did. I set my boundaries. And in 2017 or 18, I set boundaries. I didn't answer the phone. When she called, I'd let it go to voicemail, and I would get the temperature of the voicemail and figure out, what it was. Very to the point. So I just didn't call her anymore. And then when she ended up sick and she ended up in assisted living, I was the devil, and I became her guardian, her conservator, all of the things. And you wouldn't believe the messages that are on this phone right here that I've continued to save, and I will never share them because I just will never share them. They are horrifyingly sad and brutal. But I have learned that there are millions of us out there with the same story, unmothered lives. I had a friend last night that was over at the house in Kentucky, and he said to me, did I write this down? He said to me, Well, I can't find it, but I know I wrote it down. Oh, yeah, there we go. He said, "What are the best memories from your childhood, Danny? The best memories where you felt carefree?" And I looked at him and I said, "Zero. I don't have any memories in this house where I felt carefree. This was a toxic trauma house, zero memories." And he was shocked. There were no carefree moments. If that's you, hit your heart button, or your sad button. There were no carefree moments. But I can tell you right now, I'm not so sure what makes a good mother, but I am crystal clear in what makes a toxic mother. I lived it. I lived it. And if you've gone through this journey, or maybe you're going through it now, I'm just telling you right now, we may be wounded, but we are not ruined. We are not broken. I want you to know that. We're not. I thought that my mother and I would reconcile. I don't know, something, maybe reconcile. I don't know. I thought that she would tell me something great. I don't know. She never did. She never did. And she fought until the very end. Fought, and I mean fought, mean and irritable. And she was holding out for something, and I know what it was. And I finally got his daughter, her girlfriend, her boyfriend's daughter on the phone, and she talked to her, and she had these tears going down her face. And then my mom was dead in less than an hour. She was holding out for him to show up, and he didn't show up, which is ironic, isn't it? And but thank God Sonia talked to her on the phone. This is what I've discovered, and then I'm going to read your comments, and we're going to put some up here. So I'm in grief counseling, and I have an amazing grief counselor through hospice, and it's free. It's like I don't have to have free counseling anymore, and I'm very grateful about that. But it's free, and he's 27 years old, and I'm like, "What do you know about grief, for crying out loud?" Well, he knows a lot about grief. And as we're talking about stages of grief, and we're talking about grieving, I said to him, I said, "I haven't cried. I haven't really cried, like really cried. I've teared up and all." I said, I don't know. I don't know if that's normal or not. But what I think is that I am grieving what I never had, because I get pissed off about it, quite frankly. I'm grieving what I never had and what I will never have, what will never, ever, ever come to fruition. Which is what I never had was a mother who never mothered. And he said, "Danny, it's not rare. It's more common than you think, but it's a different way of grieving. It's a different grief. You're grieving not what you lost, because shit, people, I didn't lose anything. I lost a mother, right? I lost that one right there, right? And there she is giving me the finger, which is why I printed it in the doctor's office. I lost a mom. But I didn't lose, a mother. I didn't lose. I guess anyone can be a mother, anybody, but I'm not grieving what I lost. I'm grieving what I never had and never will have. And that was profound to me when I figured that out on my own. And he's just sitting there looking at me, shaking his head. He's very sweet. He's real sweet. Yeah. And some of us are feeling the exact same thing, apparently. So that's what I do know, is we may be wounded, but we're not broken, right? I get that. I get that, Carla. We may have been unmothered. I've got undermothered on here. I wrote undermothered. We may be unmothered, but it doesn't mean we are damaged goods. Somebody needs to hear that. We are not damaged. We are not broken. We may have been unmothered, but we are not broken, right? You deserve better. If you're still living through this, if you're still working with a mother that, you know, is toxic and cruel, just mean, you deserve better. Say those 3 words. You deserve better. I deserve better. And set your boundaries. Now, in the end, I'm an only child, right? I could not get out of this. She took me out of the will. All the things. And I did the right thing. I did the right thing. I didn't know it was going to end so fast. 4.5 years is not quick, but in the end, it went very fast. And I think it shocked her and it shocked me and it shocked all of us, actually. But you deserve better. Just know that. Know that. You can be kind and you can be firm at the same time. You can set your boundaries. People don't like it when you set boundaries. Children don't like it, right? But they're necessary. And in order for us to be, halfway, normal, we have to set boundaries. We cannot let them destroy our lives. And I would go months, probably 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, 2018. I could go months without talking to my mom. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. And maybe that was what gave me the bandwidth to be able to deal with this the last 4.5 years, because the girls know, the people, the sitters, the people that are on here watching, they know, they saw a lot. Now, here's the interesting thing. As I was listening to this book today about mothers who can't love, my mother had great friends that she kept for decades. And it was bizarre. She had zero relationship with her daughter and really nothing with my 2 kids, her 2 grandchildren. Really, she didn't. She thinks that she did, but she didn't. But my mother had friends forever. She could make you laugh. She was funny. Y'all seen that on the videos. She was funny as heck. In fact, I get a lot of my personality from her. And when I gave the eulogy, it was 8 minutes long. And I wrote that eulogy, and that was very difficult. And I started off, I said, my relationship with my mother was very complicated and difficult. And I talked about how we were very similar in a lot of ways. My grandmother used to say that we both were high strung, but she was a mess. She was a mess. All right, you can be kind and firm at the same time. Find a trauma therapist, people. Find a trauma therapist. It is so important. I went through on-site for a week, and that was the best thing I ever did. In fact, I'm not sure that I could have cared for my mom the way I did. And I wasn't perfect, I can tell you that, because I would lose my temper sometimes and get so angry and just walk out. But I went through on-site, their living centered living centered program. And it changed my life. It was 6 days long and it was incredible. And somebody look it up or type it in the comments. On-site program. I think it's onsiteprograms.com. It was a big deal for me. Find a grief therapist. If your parent has passed, you can still have a grief therapist. And I am telling you, if you went through hospice, they supply a grief therapist, which has been so amazing to me. And this is my homework for the next 2 weeks. I am supposed to write a letter to my mother, and maybe 2 letters. And he said, you can write the truth, which may be 10 pages long. You can write the truth, or you can write, you can write what you wish was true. And maybe I'll do both. But in 2 weeks when I see him again, he's not going to ask for the letters. But I said, well, can I burn them when it's done? Of course I can burn them. I don't have to ask his permission. But I said, I love the symbolic meaning of burning something that was bad, something from your past. And so I'm going to write those letters, and I would recommend that you do it as well. I am going to hand write the letters because I think there's power in the pen. I know there is. I wrote a book. There's power in that. And I'm going to write a letter. I'm going to write 2 letters, and you can't put it to bed because it'll never be over, but I am telling you, I am working through this trauma. I don't know. Maybe I'll break down. Maybe break down as in cry. I'm not going to have a breakdown, I don't think. Yes, we gave them grace in the end and treated them the way that, like they should have always treated us. We are not them. We love and show others what we should have all along gotten. That's exactly right, Carrie. Amen to that. I'm telling you, there's a lot of hurting people. And guess what? Hurt people. It's a fact. And I'm working on breaking those generational curses. I am working hard on it. Yes, Anne, the Living Centered program is amazing. This is an Olipop, by the way. It's not wine tonight, and it's not a Coke. It's an Olipop, classic root beer that I'm drinking. Okay, there's a couple of books that I want you all to look up. My grief counselor told me about this. Liberating Losses when death brings relief. What? I ordered it. Liberating Losses when death brings relief. Somebody can write these in the comments. No Place Like Home, Coping with the Decline and Death of Toxic Parents. I wish I'd have read these earlier, but I didn't. No Place Like Home, Coping with the Decline and Death of Toxic Parents. And today I listened to on double speed, Mothers Who Can't Love. Whoa, this is so good. Mothers Who Can't Love. So 3 books: Liberating Losses when the death brings relief, No Place Like Home, Coping with the Decline and the Death of Toxic Parents, and Mothers Who Can't Love. Okay? All right, we're going to go through questions. Somebody's saying I need to answer questions. Well, okay. Well, good evening, you guys. Hey, Danny, you need to feel all your feelings to heal. No judgment. All right. Thank you, Candy. I appreciate that. You know, I don't know. I feel just numb, but not numb. It is so surreal. It's the whole thing of what am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do now? I've got all this time when I go to Kentucky, and I've just been so rushed for so long, and it's just been very stressful, very stressful. So even the judge, when I got, oh man, I was going to show you all the letter. Even the judge, because he knew what I was going through at home, when I got the letter that the conservatorship had been done over the $75,000 bond that is on your head when you're conservator of someone is gone, removed, done. He wrote on there, Judge Telly did, I hope you're doing okay. I'm telling you, she was a mess. She called the judge's office quite a bit. A death doula was on NPR today. She said at the end, the spirit of the person is trying to make peace with their life, and they can be very agitated at the end. Whew, Candy, I believe that. My mother's death was brutal, and anyone who's in there and can vouch to that. It was not peaceful, and I did not put that in the obituary that Carolyn Sue Smith died peacefully August 18th. No, she didn't. She did not. She literally was clenching and clenching until the very end. I think she got somewhat what she wanted from Sonia, and Jack wasn't going to show up, and she talked to her. But yeah, she was fighting with something till the end. And that's probably why she asked me, Danny, do you love me, the day before? And I said, yes, do you love me? And she mumbled then. She asked me clearly, but then she mumbled. I don't know if she loved me or not. But you are amazing, Danny. How how hard it must have been for you. Sharing your story will help others. Yes, Tina, thank you. I don't know how amazing I am, but I do know that I am all about when you share your story, it helps other people and it also helps you heal. But I think you have to be ready to share your story. And Carrie says that my mother never showed up to anything of middle school, high school, let alone my college degrees. Oh, Carrie, I know. Neither of my births, and even though I picked her up all the way from Wisconsin and brought her to Minnesota for my baby shower, she spent all night at the casino with my aunt and missed my baby shower. I was the only one of the children who graduated high school and went to college, and she never once told me she was proud of me or congratulations. Yet I was the one person in my family who was willing to move back to Wisconsin so she could stay in her home and pass away there. My brothers and sisters refused because they always thought I was mean to my mom, and yet they always thought I was mean to my mom. Refused, and yet I had forgiven her when I became a Christian in 2012. All I ever wanted was to have her tell me she loved me like she loved my other family members. God taught me grace and patience through this, and I was by her side until the day she passed. Well, Carrie, you did the right thing, and you will never regret it. I will never regret being there when she took her last breath. It was surreal. And yeah, I never got anything out of her what I needed. I didn't get it. I just didn't get it. And I never will now. So again, it's part of that grieving what we never had, not what we lost. Yeah, it's fascinating. And Carrie also said, my mother was this way my whole life toward me, and she taught my older sister 20-year difference to be the same way to me. I have my boundaries, and I refuse to let any other family member treat me like my mother did. Enough was enough when she passed. Amen to that, Carrie. Amen to that. You broke that generational curse when your mother died. You broke it before that, but when your mother died, it for sure ended. And I mean, I hope I've done the same. I have tried hard. How do you feel this experience impacted you as a mother to Ella and Jackson? I believe your strong faith plays a big factor. You're so loved by our amazing God who brings peace beyond our understanding. He sure does. Mary, I don't know exactly how it impacted Ella and Jackson. I know that I tried to be kinder and gentler, but I too was single. I've been single for 20 years, and there were years of a lot of stress to where I acted really ugly. But my kids saw how my mom treated me. They saw the things she'd say to me. She never held back. I mean, I never was good enough and never did anything right and not proud of anything. And I mean, it was a mess. So, they know, and I hope that they know that I did the right thing. And I did not always did. I didn't always did it. I didn't always did it. I didn't always do it with kindness. Sometimes I was angry. But I always rebounded, and I just did the right things. I did it. I did it right. So anyway, yes, Mary Lee said yes to Carrie. So, we've all got our story, don't we? We've got our story. And on part 2, what I'm going to talk about is my protocol that I used with my mom for Alzheimer's, right? The magnesium. I mean, the things like that, the things that kept her alive. Oh, my Lord, probably 3 years longer than she would have been alive had I not. And again, I don't regret it at all, because, you do the right thing. So I'm going to share my protocol, and I'm going to share my letter writing assignment, as well as those 2 books I hope to get read by then. Liberating Losses When the Death Brings Relief, and No Place Like Home, Coping with the Decline and the Death of Toxic Parents. That's what I'm going to do. So I appreciate you all more than anything. And I know that every single one of you have got a story, and the majority of you watching on here tonight have got a story similar to this. And what's interesting is my, best friend, Margot, uh, she had a childhood polar opposite of mine. It wasn't perfect. No one has a perfect childhood, but she couldn't understand any of what she just always was like, good Lord, I just can't imagine my mama saying stuff like this to me. Sharon says, my mama had a hard time loving. She wasn't mean. I, you are blessed. You're very blessed that she wasn't mean. I felt like I could not please her my whole life. She was critical of how I spent money. I know she loved me. She showed more love to her grandkids and her great grandkids. She could say, I love you easily. We talked every day for hours, but yet I felt she did her best. As I was older, she was there for me more. That's good. That's good. My aunt and my grandma helped raise us. They cussed us out. I just thought it was normal. Yeah, I thought it was normal too. I thought it was normal as well, growing up. And then I realized it wasn't normal. And so it wasn't normal. But again, what is normal? All right. Okay, guys, listen. I went 10 minutes over what I wanted to go over, but here's what I want you to know is you're not broken. You may have been wounded. You may have had a mother who was wounded, because clearly we're all wounded, but you're not broken and you're not damaged goods. You had an unloved mother. I mean, you were underloved, right? But that doesn't mean you can't break the cycle. And I know we can. And I'm grateful for every single one of you. Abnormal is normal. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, Vicky. You'll notice she has the same last name as me. That's my cousin there. I don't know, Suzanne, about being so strong, but I try. I try. But what I want you to know, nobody's life is perfect. Everybody's got a journey. Give grace to every single person that you run across, because you don't know what they're going through. I was in town last week, 2 weeks ago, for a festival selling books. And one of the girls I went to high school with came up to me. She said, I read your book, Danny. She said, I had no idea that you were going through this in high school. And I said, wait, why would you? You don't share that stuff in high school. Good Lord, high school's brutal enough. You for sure don't share, my stepfather's beating me and I got molested and my mom's absent and oh, good Lord. But anyway, be careful too, but be kind and be gentle. And thank you for that. I'm working on that grief journey and I can't wait to share in 2 weeks. I won't be back next week because I'm going to New York City and I won't be back in time to be here. I'm going with a college roommate of mine and we're going to have a lot of fun. So, but in 2 weeks, I am going to be back and we're going to share part 2 and we're going to talk about the books and we're going to talk about the letter. And guys, we got a huge sale going on online and in the store through Halloween, like 20% off, like 10 or 12 different 20 products. So click the link, click our supplement store link. I'll share it here and you guys get on there if you need anything. Yes, the yelling and the jealousy from my mother was unreal. I'm trying to stop all of this, but y'all keep adding things. So I want to acknowledge this. And now having to take care of her is difficult. Trying to see her through God's eyes. It's taking a lot of prayers. Yes, Lori, and it takes a lot out of you. And I'm just going to give myself as much time as I need to get through this. My mom died August 18th. Her birthday was September 12th. Literally, I felt nothing. And what I believe they tell me is the first year is way easier than the second year. And so, I don't know if this Christmas, I can tell you what I'm looking forward to: a Christmas with no yelling, a Christmas with no, it's not what I want. I mean, just a Christmas of peace, peace. I don't know if that's bad or good. I don't know if that's selfish, but that's what I'm looking forward to. And guess what? I'm having Christmas in the home I grew up in that was traumatic, and there were not good memories, and they were bad Christmases, and the whole thing was a complete cluster. I can tell you that. And I'm going to have Christmas there this year with a tree and a home that's clean and peace. I'm going to have Christmas in Kentucky and Thanksgiving in Tennessee, and I don't have to run to Kentucky, but like crazy. It helps to know others have experienced traumatic childhoods too, even though sad. Others have experienced this. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yep, you got to take care of yourself, Marla. I agree. And Donna, we're going to end on this. I am also my mother's caregiver, and it's a roller coaster for sure. For sure. It is. I'll share this story right before she died, literally a month before she died. Now, this is not funny, but it's funny now. I came walking in there. I got her a biomat, and it's like, the things are expensive. It's like 500. Well, I bought it used from somebody, and I walked in there. My mom was in bed, and she sits up, and I was unpacking it, and I said, "Mom, your hair looks good," because I knew they'd just done her hair. She goes, "My hair doesn't look good." She goes, "Why do you always say stuff like that?" And I said, "What?" I said, "No, Mom, your hair looks really good." She goes, "Yeah, you always tell me that and try to make sure my hair looks ridiculous. And you say it looks good, just trying to sabotage me." Now, this is a month before she died. And Edwin was with me, which he's down here beside me. Edwin was with me. I had just driven straight from Nashville. I'm unpacking this biomat. I said, "Look, I got you this great big heating pad." It's not what it is, but it's a great big heating pad, so it'll help your pain. She said, "Yeah, I'm sure it will." She goes, "I don't know why you try to make me look ridiculous. My hair doesn't look good." And I literally, it was not even a minute and a half. I started packing up the biomat. I didn't say a word. This was in July, because, yeah, she died in August. Packing it up. She goes, "What are you doing?" And I looked straight at her, and I said, "I don't deserve this abuse. Edwin and I are going home, and I'll see you tomorrow." And I wasn't even there a minute and a half. And I walked out the door at the assisted living, and she goes, "Goodbye, asshole." I was already out the door. "Goodbye, asshole." I didn't say a word. I wanted to put my head back in the door and say, "You goodbye, asshole," but I didn't say a word. I just walked out, and I was done with that. And I went back the next morning. Guess what? I went back with the biomat, went back with Edwin, acted like nothing ever happened, and she never even remembered I was there. Woo! It was a mess. Okay. Thank you about talking about this issue. I didn't realize until recently how toxic my upbringing was. And I'm 61. My mother is 83, and it continues to get worse. It's so difficult to deal with. I missed it. It popped up, but it's difficult to deal with it. I appreciate you sharing your story with you. Oh, God, or with us. Gosh. I'm sorry. I had a patient this week whose mom is also in her 80s or something, and it's very toxic. And oh, Lord. All right, guys, I got to go. Hey, if you haven't bought the book, read the book. All right. It is a fantastic book. Fantastic book. And it's gotten great reviews. I need you to buy the book. All right. Because there you go. I'm having to care for both of my aging parents. Oh, I'm sorry. And they're always kind and grateful for everything I do for them. Prayers for all you caregivers. Suzanne, this is the best way to end it right here on something positive instead of being called an asshole. Look here. Empower the women around you. And we're going to empower Suzanne right now to get through this with her parents. And I know her parents, and they're good people. And Suzanne, I'm happy because, not everyone has that. So just recognize that and what a blessing that is. All right, guys, I love you. I appreciate you. And just know that, life is hard. Life is tough. Life is difficult, but, you are harder. You are harder. You are tougher. Life may be tough, but you're tougher, ladies. You are tougher, ladies. Oh, we're not ending on that having to affect the health. How about we'll talk about that in 2 weeks? We're going to talk about how empowering it can be to do the right thing. All right. All right. Good. You got the book. Read it. If you ordered it online, please review it. I need your reviews. All right, guys, we got this. Just because our mothers may have been toxic, or even our fathers, but we're talking about mothers here, may have been toxic. We don't have to be. We can do the right thing and you'll never regret it. And here's one thing, nobody lives forever. So, I mean, it could have gone on a long time. And if she'd lived 20 more years, I don't know what I would have done. But I mean, I'm not grateful she's dead. So don't think that. I just, we can tolerate anything that's put in front of us. That's all I can say. So again, if you were unmothered, it does not mean that you're broken or that you're damaged goods. Okay. Love you. I appreciate you. Have a great night. Have a good week.